So CNN just did a expose on alligator Alcatraz. Did you know that the inmates are being tortured because they were out of air conditioning for an afternoon? A whole afternoon. Oh, and wait, did you hear the inmates there? They have hot showers. Oh, how dare they? They say they're being tortured. Is that right? Tortured by having access to hot showers and air conditioning. Not to mention their food. Have you guys seen their food? CNN and the left wing content creators are like, oh, they're being tortured. It's like a concentration camp. Wow. Did I mention they have air conditioning and good food and hot showers? Huh. Because any of the women that I was in the Ohio Reformatory for Women can corroborate this story. Not only did we have mainstream media coverage when we had maggots in our food, we were calling home and everything. And guess how quickly that was solved? Well, 2 months. Yeah, we had to deal with that for 2 months. Not to mention when we had zero hot water and we all had to take cold showers, and we were actually timed. We could not take a very cold, ice cold shower for longer than 3 minutes. The COs would stand there with a stopwatch. The food. Do you want to talk about the food inside the penal system? Because if you don't get commissary, not only are you starving, but it's absolutely inedible. The food that was in the kitchen was labeled farm feed with an expiration date of like 30 years. Air conditioning. Do you think we have air conditioning in any prison in America? You know, there's 26 of them just in Ohio, right? Guess how many of them have air conditioning? Zero. Yeah, you can buy a fan off a commissary. So these inmates are complaining they're being tortured with hot showers, and their air conditioning was out for a whole afternoon, and their portions, they're not used to getting such smaller portions. You want to talk about small portions? Try drinking your milk from a bag. The only thing that was edible in the Ohio Reformatory for Women was not only the food that, if you were lucky enough to get commissary, but the chicken patties. That was it. And I guarantee you that wasn't chicken patties. We didn't have air conditioning. We hardly had hot showers. And I have a bone to pick with some of the women that I was in Ohio Reformatory for Women. So if this was you, well, defecating in the showers, gross. Absolutely disgusting that we had to call a biohazard team at least 4 times a month because y'all had a visit of a lifetime where you had to poo in the shower to siphon through your poo so you can get your contraband that was smuggled in. It blows my ever-loving minds. They're complaining about hot showers. The left and the mainstream media is comparing alligator Alcatraz to Auschwitz. You know, I ran into liberals in St. Petersburg. They couldn't spell alligator. You know that, right? The lady spelled it Alagator, but she spelled Auschwitz right. These inmates are complaining. They're complaining. You are in this country illegally. Oh, did I? Oh, forgive me. I know they're used to luxurious accommodations and 5-star hotels while our veterans and our Americans sleep on the streets. Family separation. There are millions of Americans inside the prison system. What about their family separation? I'm over here like you. I did 3 years in prison. Guess what? Did we get pillows? No, we had to take our state issued jacket and roll it up and hopefully find a pillowcase of somebody who was possibly leaving before us so we can grab their pillowcase. We didn't get a pillowcase. We got a mat that was about that thick. And every single one of us had a bunkie. Every single one of us had a bunkie. And if you were on the bottom bunk or the top bunk, it didn't matter because if your bunkie so much as moved a centimeter, it felt like you were in an earthquake. They're mad about their food. Did you see the portions that they get? Not only the portions do they get, but they're getting fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. They're getting chicken and all kinds of... Man, let me just tell you something. The food that we were forced to eat, not only did you get breakfast at like 4 a.m., but then lunch was at 12, and then dinner was at 4:30, and then you weren't eating again until 4 o'clock in the morning. Did I mention we had to drink our milk from a bag? Yeah, we did. Oh, they say there's not enough drinking water. Well, you know what we drink out of? The same receptacle. The water where our toilet came out of. So, do I care about these people on Alligator Alcatraz? No. I hope they get out of here quick. You know what I do care about? I care that our fellow Americans are in the prison system dealing with family separation. Some don't have anything to eat, but they don't say nothing about them. Not one Democrat demands to go into a prison that's here in the United States and say, let me see how you guys are treating these inmates. Because if they did, and if that was put on the mainstream media, the Democrats would never hold office again.
Yep.
When I saw the video of my arrest generated by Trump AI, I was shocked and angry. I didn't expect or understand that as the president.
The main one I got is about Epstein stuff, but I got a few other ones that I'm going to play too about Tulsi Gabbard and that. So, and what's going on with that.
President of the United
A little humor while people are coming on.
States could do such a disgusting and childish prank. The video showed me being captured by agents and kneeling on the ground in an orange prison uniform. Trump had no idea how bad an impact his
making the former president answer questions. I think that certainly should be on the table, given the fact that, again, when Donald Trump took office the first time, he had talked about locking Hillary Clinton up. And then he said, you know what, I'm not going to pursue that because the way we do business in this country is we don't lock up former presidents.
The stuff you can do with AI these days, it's funny.
And then he becomes a former president, and the first thing his opponents try to do is lock him up. And I think that at this point, President Trump and his administration correctly say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if we're going to take a look at criminal activity, certainly involvement in one of the great political scandals of my lifetime ought to be something that is looked at.
In my opinion, and this is controversial in my family, you should not eat ketchup after the age of 8.
Is that all condiments or just ketchup?
No,
I
it's
think
just
you've
ketchup.
gone down in age on that one. You know, I think every time you say it, you make it younger and younger. And pretty soon it'll be like
and I'm
a
hoping
4-year-old.
we don't have a ketchup sponsor on this show.
Well, we won't now.
I have nothing.
And we here at IMO have nothing against ketchup.
I have nothing against kids having ketchup.
And that's exactly what she's trying to do, and that's exactly what the Trump administration is trying to do. Let's give people the facts. Let's follow where the facts are. If somebody's done anything, we'll hold them accountable. So I think they're right.
An unprecedented and clear abuse of power by the Obama administration. For the good of the country, we urge Attorney General Bondi to appoint a special counsel to investigate the extent to which former President Obama, his staff and administration officials manipulated the U.S. national security apparatus for a political outcome, the senators said in a statement. Gabbard has alleged that Obama and his senior officials concocted a years-long coup against Trump, manifested in a special counsel investigation and FBI inquiries, by manufacturing intelligence in the weeks after Trump's 2016 victory over Hillary Clinton that was meant to show collusion between his campaign and Russia. She has recommended that criminal charges be pressed, including against Obama himself. Trump has embraced her argument and has said Gabbard's findings reveal irrefutable proof of treason. Bondi set the scene for a just. Under fire, DOJ forms strike force to investigate Obama amid Epstein scandal. Announcement comes as administration tries to pivot from questions about Trump's ties to the disgraced financier. The U.S. Justice Department has formed a
the third or fourth video I got, Paula, your jaw will drop.
Strike force to investigate claims that the Obama administration carried out a treasonous conspiracy by using false intelligence to suggest Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election to help Donald Trump. Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, announced the new force's formation on Wednesday after the release of a trove of declassified documents from Barack Obama's national security team by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. The announcement comes as the U.S. president finds himself mired in scandal over the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, and has tried to distract by pivoting conversation Trump. Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, announced the new force's formation on Wednesday after the release of a trove of declassified documents from Barack.
I think they're better off keeping it as a strike force because special counsels can't really prosecute anyone. They just gather information. So there'll be a long delay. It'll run to the end of Trump's administration. They'll never get anything done. It's a lot quicker to do it the way they're doing it.
Barack Obama's national security team by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. The announcement comes as the U.S. president finds himself mired in scandal over the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, and has tried to distract by pivoting conversation to retribution against his political enemies. On Thursday, 2 Republican senators, Lindsey Graham and John Cornyn, both members of the Judiciary Committee, called on Bondi to appoint a special counsel into what they called an unprecedented and clear abuse of power by the Obama administration. For the good of the country, we urge a 2016 victory over Hillary Clinton that was meant to show collusion between his campaigns.
Let's see.
Trump has embraced her argument and has said Gabbard's findings reveal irrefutable proof of treason.
Next one. Let me
Bondi set the scene for a
go back
just.
to my page, and I was gonna play. I played that one already, didn't I? Where is it here? Hold on. Sorry. Right here. Here we go.
While Donald Trump's Oval Office comments yesterday about Barack Obama and treason might seem to most to be the headline grabber of the day, don't miss the importance of what he said again about Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Because if you do, you'll miss the historical importance of what is going on right now.
I also got to bring up about the bankers before we get to the Epstein stuff,
which is a full-scale assault on the central institution of British imperial economics, and it has the modern-day empire in a frenzy. Yes, the material released by DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard, which puts Obama in the political crosshairs, is explosive. But as Victor David Hansen said,
this was a 3-year project to overturn the will of the American people and to destroy administration. Makes Watergate, as people have remarked on, Laura, look like small potatoes. It really does. It's such a magnitude we can't even grasp it.
It makes Watergate look like small potatoes, and it does. And Hansen's reference to Watergate is actually an important reminder, because while it's absolutely necessary to fully expose the Trump chapter of the deep state's assault on our nation, we have to expose all of the chapters of such operations, including Watergate, presidential assassinations, and economic subversion. That's what the mainstream media avoids, and where most patriotic media just doesn't put the pieces together. The Gabbard revelations and Trump's zeroing in on Obama's crimes goes way beyond exposing the 10-year-long coup attempt against the president. It's about dismantling the entire apparatus that made those crimes possible. This is Susan Kokinda, and I was in Washington during Watergate, meeting with people on Capitol Hill and in the White House, trying to stop the coup against Richard Nixon. But the deep state, with its media arm, acted with impunity and have gotten away with it for over 50 years, dismantling our economy and dragging us into wars. Here's what we'll cover. First, we'll look at the Obama revelations from the standpoint of the role Obama played in keeping the globalist system intact during the 2008 meltdown. Second, how Trump and his team are preparing the American population for the biggest economic fight in 100 years. And third, the advances that have already been made in restoring American economic sovereignty, and how you can play a vital role in making that happen. Because this is a fight that Trump can lead, but to win, he needs you on the battlefield with him, not being distracted by every twist and turn of the news cycle. We're the veterans in this fight, and Promethean Action will provide you with the intelligence, the history, and the strategy to reclaim our nation's economic sovereignty. So go to our website and subscribe to our free newsletter. So let's start with what Trump said yesterday about Obama in the Oval Office.
After what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. What they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level.
Now, Obama has now been hit hard enough that his office had to release a response, which says nothing in the document released last week undermines the widely accepted conclusion that Russia attempted to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did.
The only one that concluded that was the media and ran with it. And politicians, even some rhinos.
Not successfully manipulate any votes. Tulsi Gabbard countered this by saying, essentially, you ain't seen nothing yet because there's more documents to come. But let me put all of that in the proper context of when Obama came to power. Remember, Obama entered the presidency just as the Wild West speculative bubble had blown wide apart in 2008, shattering the economic foundation for millions of Americans and businesses. We called for Obama's impeachment early with this now famous sign, and we exposed his rise as a British asset mentored by Tony Blair. And we fought for Glass-Steagall when the 2008 bubble burst. Obama's team, with their uniparty allies, stopped that reform cold and protected the bailouts. In fact, just last week, I reported on Lord Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein's role in defending the central banking system, a system that should have been ended in 2008. Now, Trump also called for Glass-Steagall on the campaign trail in 2016. Glass-Steagall is a bill that was in place for over 50 years that separated commercial banking from the speculators. And Trump's calling for Glass-Steagall put an even bigger target on his back than was already there, because he demonstrated that he understood how insane the current system was. Remember that when we talk about his fight with Jerome Powell a little later. And remember that as we take a look at the historical origins of what you call today the deep state. Because the creation of the FBI and the Federal Reserve go hand in hand, emerging within 5 years of each other. The Bureau of Investigations, later named the FBI, was created in 1908, and the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. These both came in the immediate period after the assassination of William McKinley, the last American system Republican president until Donald Trump. Shortly after that bureau was created, British intelligence dispatched one of its officers, Claude Dancy, to the United States, where he was embedded as the resident secretary of a super elite country club on the Hudson, founded by the Rockefellers and frequented by them and the Morgans and the rest of America's financier elite. Sir Dancy cultivated an enormous network of rich and connected contacts.
Is chat
He
working
then became
okay?
the mentor Van Damon and trained Van Damon and other urgency techniques modeled on the British imperial practices. These methods then directly shaped America's early secret police apparatus. And during these formative years, under Sir Dancy's direction, this was all done in lockstep collaboration with America's financier elite. Dancy's biographer wrote, his contacts from those years controlled banks, railroads, public utilities, as well as the production of vital materials such as rubber, copper, and oil. They were also able to pull strings for him and gain him access to men of power, like Secretary of War Baker. In other words, our original national police force, which was renamed the FBI in 1935, was set up to protect the interests of the Anglo-American elite. There's a similar story to be told another time about the formation of the CIA. But in other words, the so-called deep state has always been the policing arm for the empire's financial and economic interests. Obama's conspiracy is just the latest chapter in this century-long story. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and why Trump's Fed comments are just as important as the exposure of the Obama plot against Trump. Trump and his economic team aren't just exposing the inner workings of a decades-long coup against him.
These are kind of all tied to the Epstein stuff because they're trying to cover up their Epstein stuff as well. It's all tied to the same people.
They are preparing the American people for a huge economic fight. They're bringing you into a public and heated discussion about the very viability of the Federal Reserve. Listen to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
They want socialism. That's why they have to make the country collapse.
I think that what we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful.
Now listen to Kevin Warsh's comments about the Fed. Warsh is being considered as a replacement for Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell whenever and however Powell's term ends. Here's what Warsh said about the Fed. We need regime change in the conduct of policy. But Warsh's other remarks are frankly even more interesting because he takes to task some hallowed Fed axioms. He said, the Fed seems to see every sign of economic growth as inflationary. That's not how it should be. Economic growth isn't inflation. Growth is how you solve these problems, not cause them. They think inflation comes if the economy runs too hot and workers get paid too much. That's not my view. And then you have Trump himself, who continues to call Powell a numbskull and drills down on the fact that the Fed's high interest rate policies make it impossible for young people to own a home.
Hi, John.
Put all of that together, and you begin to see a concept arising of a different kind of banking system, one that supports a decent standard of living, driven by the actual growth of the economy, and not the demands of the empire of money. That was once widely known as the American system. Now, Judy Shelton, who was nominated for the Fed in Trump's first term but wasn't confirmed, tiptoed a little closer to the question of the constitutionality, or really the unconstitutionality of the Fed. She said, I don't think it is the role of the Fed to stand in judgment of the economic policies of an elected president. It violates the norms of democratic government to have the head of an agency who is so powerful they can't be fired. Now, in that same CNBC interview, she pointed out that the Fed has been paying hundreds of billions of dollars to private banks for parking cash reserves at the Fed rather than investing in the real economy. Think about that. They're literally paying banks not to invest in productive activity. And the question of productive activity and growing our way out of our deficit crisis.
Their goal is to take down capitalism. They don't want any private property. They want you to own nothing, and they will control everything. And they have to crash the middle class to get this upper class, and everyone else will be poor. That's what their goal is.
And the need to have institutions that support that has become a driving theme of Trump and his allies. This is exactly what William McKinley understood over 120 years ago, that the financial system should serve the productive economy, not the other way around. Trump is bringing back the American system that built this country into an industrial powerhouse. Now, we just hit the 6-month mark of Trump's second term, and the White House put out a series of statements marking the enormous strides that have been made in that direction. Or look at the Energy and Innovation Summit, which Trump presided over last week in Pennsylvania, where they heralded $92 billion in investment and the creation of tens of thousands of good-paying jobs. Manufacturing jobs are returning, wages are rising, and more importantly, young people are finding hope again. I had a perfect example of that just last week when I was speaking to a Republican precinct delegate meeting in Michigan. I referenced the Trump administration's commitment to create 1 million skilled apprenticeships for young Americans when a delegate interrupted and reported that her grandson, who had been working as a marijuana chef, yes, that actually is a thing, is now in one of those skilled trade apprenticeship programs, and told her, I've never been happier. Now I'll be building things. That's the difference between the financialized gig economy and a real producer economy. Instead of making new flavors of weed, this young man is now part of Trump's economic and cultural transformation. So let's pull all this together. Yes, the revelations about the coup and Obama's role are explosive. They need to be fully exposed and the perpetrators brought to justice. But don't mistake the battle for the war. For over a century, the Federal Reserve and its intelligence apparatus have looted our productive economy, suppressed our wages, and kept us trapped in a cycle of debt and speculation. They've used their power to crush any president or national figure who dared to challenge them.
And part of making us third world is letting all the illegals in and living off our system, getting freebies.
From McKinley to the Kennedys to Martin Luther King to Nixon to Trump himself. But this time is different. The Fed's days of operating as an unaccountable empire within our republic are numbered, as long as you stay focused on winning the war. That's why your support for Promethean action is critical.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one that I have saved. Let's go back about the Epstein one. I could do. I'm going to do Tulsi Gabbard's thing first here. Let's do this one first. It's probably going to have an ad.
The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to
I'm
every
going to play
American.
part of it.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence.
Yeah, Paula, they just keep printing it. It makes it worthless.
And credible intelligence that disproved their false.
It's gotten so bad down in Venezuela. You earn $2 million a month, and it's no $2.5 million a month, and it's worth less than $2. Money's laying all over the place.
Claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman
see how it's all connected?
Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified oversight majority staff report that was produced in September of 2020.
Over to the left there? And right.
The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama.
More and more is coming out about the 2020 election too, the cheating that was done on that to win. It's really ridiculous. Arizona's thing, there's probably some people going to jail there.
And his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew
they screwed
was
Carrie
false.
Lake.
They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims.
They're trying so desperately to cover up everything they've done with the Epstein Island and stuff too.
They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, and ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. The records that we released on Friday that were ODNI records,
Paula,
Senator Chuck Grassley's release on Monday of what is known as the Clinton Annex, which was an appendix to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General's 2018 report, as well as the House Intelligence Committee's majority oversight report that we're releasing today, all come back to and confirm the same report. There was a gross politicization and manipulation of intelligence by the Obama administration intended to delegitimize President Trump even before he was inaugurated, ultimately usurping the will of the American people. I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence...
David, we have to replace the media. That's the only thing that's going to work because they're so left-wing, they're so socialist. They'll do anything to take America down. They want it real bad.
Community assessment that President Obama ordered John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory.
It was all part of the plan.
Goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had, on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts, like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department
money laundering
to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Trump's big mistake the first time wasn't to go after the first election. But there was people, like William Barr and all them that were in his administration that kept him from doing it, kind of.
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessments.
Has everyone seen when she talks about the burn bags and everything that they found locked in double locked? It was one room inside another room, locked inside another vault. It was a lot of these intelligence stuff. I'm going to move on to the other one so I can make sure I can get it in. Let me go back. I got them all up on my YouTube, Utah Gun Exchange. The Epstein stuff right here. Let me bring that up because there's probably an ad at the beginning. I knew there would be. Sorry about that. Taking a little while to load. Can't even enlarge it. Let me try and refresh the page, maybe. There we go. There we go.
I am Jeff Epstein's niece.
This is good. I don't know if anyone's seen this yet.
Bill was on the flight logs because he went to the island. He also went to many, many other places where me and other children were present. With my experiences, I believe he wanted to...
This is Epstein's niece. And she was part of everything they were doing to people.
Talk more about the other parties involved. And I know he didn't kill himself. I'm not sure whether they let him go and get plastic surgery and flee the country, or if they did kill him. But I do believe he was a pawn, and that his story blew up in the media to keep people from looking beyond him. If Jeffrey was the one villain in charge of it, then, oh, he's dead, it's all over, everything's good now. MK Ultra is the practice of creating slaves with a severed memory, many of whom were my siblings, who I only got to see at family reunion, who I would rush home from.
They were doing this to their own relatives as well. Nieces, nephews, everything. They're this sick.
From school to watch on TV.
This is why they have to cover this up.
I moved back to New York City because my ex-husband had a scheme to try to allow me to speak about some of this in court, since court testimony can be used as evidence to potentially open up a criminal case. But when I got to the hearing, I was only allowed to say my name and address, and the judge refused to let me speak beyond that. When we had gone to the FBI a couple years ago, they interviewed my father and said, oh, he said nothing happened, so we're going to close this case. If every successful politician is born into this world, they have vested interest in keeping it quiet. The cult of Baal, B-A-L. My family masqueraded themselves as Jewish publicly, but behind closed doors, at Passover dinners, when I was drugged, would admit, we are Satanists.
So I am here with Anya Wick, Epstein's niece, and I've been watching Anya on TikTok. The link for her TikTok is in the description box, so please support Anya's work. And my partner Jen has been really just amazed by your story as well. Harrowing, a lot of it. There's components in there, for example, Bohemian Grove and other extreme things that I'm sure will fascinate the viewers. But before we get to all that stuff, viewers, disclaimer, harrowing content warning. And because of restrictions on my channel, Anya, I've got to make sure you give us permission to publish this video and you waive your anonymity.
Of course.
Okay. So before we get then to what you've been through, do you want to just set the table a bit and let the viewers know what it was like for you growing up?
Yes, of course. So my name is Anya Wick, but at birth, I was Anya Beth Epstein. I was born in a house in Boulder. In 2015, I changed my name to Owen Theodore Epstein. In 2020, I changed it again to Anna Petrova. I had realized what I was surrounded by my entire life and thought I could hide from it. And I married a man named Wick, kept that name, and decided to start going public with my story just a few months ago. I had chemically driven amnesia the majority of my life. I am Jeff Epstein's niece, and I was raised as a sex slave. My father had me separated from my mother and twin brother and administered a substance that was designed to sever my memory. Every time I was taken to or family vacation or trip to the cabin in the mountains, I was given this drug, upon which everything would come flooding back. But when it wore off, so would the majority of my memories of it. And I would try to go to school, perform with my bands, be a regular person. But it broke me subconsciously.
That has long-term
I knew something
effects.
was very wrong. And I had internalized it on myself. And after an attempt in 2015, I got away from the slavery I was in by taking testosterone, transitioning to male. I left Colorado in 2017 and started piecing together back memories that I had assumed were only nightmares in about 2020. That's the very short version of my story. And Sean we could come at this from any angle, any point of time in my autobiography. I invite you to just ask what you are curious about.
So let's slow it down then and just go back to the beginning again. How old were you when you first realized that things weren't as they should be?
I had awareness of this in grade school. I remember my supposed 7th birthday. I was actually already 10 years old.
Does anyone know out there what the name of these drugs are that they were using to do this? I've heard of it before. I just don't know what it's called. I know that stuff exists.
Let me backtrack. My father and stepmother had a baby girl in 1991 who was raised by another family. In 1998, they assigned me her birth date on my birth certificate, which they waited 10 years to file, claiming my stepmother was my biological mother, and finally put me in school in the gifted program, telling me I was tall. I thought it was very strange that my mother was so callous with me. I knew it wasn't normal that I wouldn't let her touch me on the shoulder. And I felt worlds away from my peers. I remember in the 1st grade sitting there journaling, I don't feel 7. I feel much older. I feel at once like there's something I'm missing that the rest of my classmates all understand, and that I've lived a lot more than them. I remember being on the schoolyard.
Thanks, John.
Talking with my few friends about what would it be like if you were tortured and didn't know it. And like, what are you talking about? I got in trouble with my friend's mother for drawing stick figure at a slumber party. Of course, it shouldn't be the child's fault if they.
Maxwell's have been testifying, and is going to in front of Congress, I guess. What does everyone think is going to come of all that? I'm hoping she does and does tell the truth. That's the hard part, Can you believe her for sure? I don't know. Hey, Gregory.
Had exposure.
Maybe you know about those drugs, Gregory, that they can give you and it'll affect your memory so you can't remember things.
To anything like that, but I took the blame instead of my parents. I always knew something was wrong, but because my regular life,
some of that might be going through a lot of trauma. You kind of block it out, too, as well.
My parents were upstanding citizens. My father was a divorce attorney.
Being a sex slave, as a little kid, I would want to block that out.
I had some memories I retained, but because of the nature of the substance I was on, made that reality so different than my regular life. I thought these were nightmares, that I was sick, and I didn't tell anybody.
Why do you think your family got involved in these things?
Yeah, Gregory, I agree.
It goes back for generations. It goes back.
I think she should take everyone down with her, actually, Maxwell.
For generations. I remember my father confessing that my oldest brother is 8 years younger than him.
Somehow that doesn't make any sense.
Is cyclical. With men, especially when they stifle it, they repeat the patterns, which I don't see as an excuse. I'm not a. But of course, this happens with men.
That's what we were trying to figure out.
Power and pressure to conform.
We were trying to figure that out.
Is excellent.
It was something they were giving her to use her as a sex slave,
silencing people,
so she wouldn't remember.
They told me,
and they could do anything.
That we belonged to the cult of Baal, B-A'.
They were Satanists.
They told me this with consistency. while I was being abused. Now, what you can look up about the cult of Baal, information that is publicly available, is that it is thousands of years old. It is a Phoenician satanic fertility cult. And publicly, it's supposed to have been eradicated. But to my knowledge and my experience, it is not. This is what people perceive the Illuminati to be. It is a group of elites that practices.
You might be right, Paula.
Forced.
I haven't watched this whole thing yet.
And uses these crimes to control people. They happen to have a huge reach over politics and entertainment.
I know she is the niece of Epstein, so, you know, and Maxwell, all of them, you know. I wonder how the only way is to see all the videos in a way.
My great-grandfather, according to my father, was Walt Disney. Before he moved to the United States, his name was Artur Bick, ARTURBICKE. And his twin sister, who he had children with, who I am descended
Paula, I hope
from,
she can kind of bring the receipts in
was
some way
named
to
Minnie.
kind of prove what she's saying.
That's where we get Mickey and Minnie Mouse. It's very cute, right? Except for when you consider the abuse that I suspect is still happening to children who go into the entertainment industry, children who are born into it.
I think it was
my father was abused
on
by
YouTube about 3
his
months
parents,
ago.
and
About 3 months ago.
I was raised.
That's where I got it
going
from,
to
originally.
these giant, where I would meet other children who were put on television.
A little bit before the Maxwell stuff came out. I got it up on my huge tube a little after that.
I was raised getting taken to Bohemian Grove, where I was, after a ceremonial corpse burning Alex Jones has talked about. And my memories of these circumstances are still somewhat fragmented. These assaults happened a couple times a month, and I'm blessed not to remember every detail. But my father was consistent in what he told me. It's hard for me to talk about. I want to just answer your questions.
I'm kind of wondering if this is going to match what Maxwell will say or not. Maxwell would know her if it was a niece of Epstein, for sure.
Honestly, as my answers align with what I was told and what I have experienced. Now, this is alleged. When birth certificates have been forged, it's not something I can immediately research myself. All I have to go on is what lies in my memory of who I have met and what I was told. But to answer your basic question, why my family does this, because it was done to them, because...
Does anyone else know if any other family members are saying the same thing or similar stuff or anything? Do they talk to her? Or did they disown her? What happened?
Having one man bear as many children in a generation as possible and forcing them through these traumatic events, they believe it creates a stronger bond, that creates more loyalty, that it keeps people from talking And for the most part, they're right.
Hey, Yvette, I see you watching on the other.
The only one of my siblings who has directly spoken out about this. There are people who have hinted at it in their music. Of course, Justin Bieber has talked about being assaulted by Usher and Justin Timberlake at P. Diddy's parties, but I don't think it's a coincidence they've only gone after Sean Combs and not his other alleged perpetrators who were born into the bloodline. There seems to be a level of protection for people who are simply born into that world, contrasted with people like Sean Combs or R. Kelly, who joined as adults.
John, I don't know about that.
Was not in the
she's
boardrooms.
married to a guy.
I was a child on drugs. So I can't tell you exactly who organizes this, exactly
She said she
how
was a
it
drug
happens.
user as a kid.
It's just speculation and memory.
Anya, you're a very powerful speaker and you're very well researched. And we've had a lot of survivors come on, and we salute you, you know, for the level of detail and knowledge that you have. I think it was David Icke who was.
Has there ever been any other Epstein victims that have ever come out and done shows like this or anything? Does anyone know?
Who's actually detailed how that has continued over the ages. So if you could maybe expand on that a little bit, I think the viewers would find this fascinating.
What specifically would you like expanded on?
So what was the cult that you mentioned earlier, the ancient one?
The cult of Baal. B-A-L.
Yes.
B-A-L.
Yep.
I know very little about it. My family masqueraded themselves as Jewish publicly. But behind closed doors, you know, at Passover dinners, when I was drugged, would admit, we are Satanists. Now, what I can understand, the public has caught on to this, but they call them the Illuminati. And I find that interesting because Illuminati means illuminated. I perceive the Illuminati, in fact,
I thought that was a family name.
Individuals like yourself, other conspiracists like Alex Jones, even people like Kanye West who have been trying to illuminate people to this. I do not believe it is a unified organization, but a loose collection of individuals who are illuminated to the cult of Baal, who has successfully mythologized themselves as the Illuminati and convinced people that they are shape-shifting reptilians, you know, myths that can be perpetuated by the psychedelic nature of the tool that they use to abuse victims, which is used to delegitimize people who catch on to what they have been doing. And to be truthful, it was a reason I was anxious to come on here. You know, when people...
What's everyone think? Did Epstein kill himself? I really doubt it. Something else is going on there. Either that or they killed him.
We'll talk about seeing men turn into lizards. It makes everything seem a little bit more delegitimate. Now, when someone has been given a powerful drug, their minds can experience something like that. They can witness something like that. And
hallucinations?
It's something that kept me very confused as a child. I'm in the material world, in this plane. I'm being assaulted by my father, my uncles, my cousins. But my mind is somewhere else. My mind is going on this fantasy ride. And when I awake, I'm very confused. I also believe there are people who have talked about these outlandish, metaphysical, impossible experiences intentionally to derail conversations about the cults and their power in media and politics.
How prevalent are these Satanists in high society, and are they disguised?
Yes. They control so much more than I think even I can understand. I told you my father boasted that his grandfather was Walt Disney.
I hear you, Gregory.
Now, I remember when Viacom bought Fox, but Fox held a hard line on not selling the news station.
Paul, that means she can run for office then, right? Just like Kamala. She can run for office then. And
Steve raged and cried for a month because that would have been a full
Hillary dabbled in the Satanist stuff. That's for sure.
monopoly on the American news market.
That's what you should ask her about.
I remember meeting all sorts of politicians, American and foreign, and entertainers. And as far as that goes, I'm happy to answer honestly if you want to ask me about specific people. But I am very scared to name individuals if I am unprompted.
Yeah, if you say if you say you've met somebody, there's no legal consequences of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to tell us who you've met, and the viewers can just imagine, what was happening. So with NordVPN, you can watch my Sons of Ecstasy documentary if you're in the UK. Hacked, I've lost my click. It's this VPN on the map. Clicked on it and alert you. It's free. So back to the
fragments of memory of only once meeting the royals on the one trip I took with my family over to the UK. And
she is, John.
It must have been 2005 or 2006. I can't remember if it was the summer I went into the 8th grade or into the 9th grade.
Paula. About the
I have met
and pure evil.
Everyone who has been an American president in my lifetime.
It's coming out. She was on a lot of drugs herself. Hillary herself was on a bunch of stuff. Stuff to knock you out and make you go to sleep. That kind of stuff as well.
Including Donald Trump, who I have to say,
hey, Alan,
looked like he was at a funeral when he was at the inauguration the second time around. I don't think he wanted any part of it. I have met the Kardashians, which is why I believe Kanye West has
in their background.
appeared to have gone off his rocker.
Kids or something.
I have met Harvey Weinstein.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The same night I met Jeffrey and Ghislaine.
Paula, don't those tranquilizers have other side effects to you when you're not on them though? Once you've taken them, she probably needs them. Probably maybe a lot of guilt for all she's done. I've heard stories of her. They cut kids' faces off, and she was running around holding the face over her face and pretend she was someone else and all that kind of crap. Off of kids and all that. Just pure evil.
And he wouldn't make eye contact with me.
I wish he would talk about that.
He did not want to
part
participate in the abuse of the small children. I believe that's a man who is behaving as most Hollywood producers do. Which doesn't make what he did with those actresses okay. But it looks to me like this is a man who was an easy scapegoat, who wanted to expose what takes place with children in the industry and with our family. There are a lot of people like that.
Tammy, this is Epstein's niece. and she's talking about what she went through as a child in all these cults. They're Satanist cults where they were, and everything they were doing to kids, including her, sex and everything, drugging them up and all that kind of memory things, all that kind of stuff, Tammy, just to get you up to speed.
Who have been vilified as, and while they are not innocent, it's like choose your evil.
Wow, 30 days. Wow, that's a long time, actually. Oh, she was messed up the whole time.
Jeffrey was not a hardcore. He was guilty for what he did to those teenagers. But my family ritualizes the of 3-year-olds, which Jeffrey was not privy to. My twin brother was raised on the Disney Channel. That was painful for me.
All right, if she's got a twin brother, has he ever talked? Does anyone happen to know?
We were separated when we were 4, and I didn't see him until he was on TV. With the pilot episode in which he pimps out his sister for a trading card. There's a sequence of shots where the words Royal Tycoon flash on screen, followed by a clip of the gross nerdy boy he tricks into going on a date with, plunging himself into a baby's crib. And he's been in the media for making trouble on sets and abusing his partners. And
I think you're right, Paula. He should be asking
not saying
more
his
questions.
behavior is justified, but when you consider what someone like that goes through as a child and the separation issues that are put on them, it makes sense why abusive behavior is then repeated.
I agree, Alan.
You know, I pray for him regularly.
I think
I am anxious to talk about my siblings because they are victims. I want them to feel that it is safe for them to speak up, but I don't want to feel like I am betraying them by naming them directly either.
Whatsoever.
And I've already talked about on my TikTok channel. I've talked a little bit about the last time I saw my mother. I was getting by Larry.
Who else in her family is still around?
It sounds like a comedy line almost, and I've used it as a comedy line. I enjoy my stand-up. It's healing for me. But I decided before coming on here, I wasn't going to, with few exceptions, I didn't want to name anyone unless you asked me about them. I think there are a lot of people in the public
ask certain questions,
speculate on. And if you bring them up, I'm happy to talk about them. But
yeah, so I think the viewers would be very curious then about Jeffrey and what's your view on his role in the apparatus?
My understanding is that I met him in Aspen in 2007, and that was a reintroduction. My father said, "Hey, remember your Uncle Jeffrey?" And Jeffrey said, "Hey, Anya, it's great to see you again." Jelaine was there. What they told me was that Jeffrey worked for Stephen. And as I've said, he is guilty for what he did to those teenage girls here in New York City and down.
Okay, so anyone know who Stephen is?
Down in Florida, on St. Andrews. But I do not believe he was in charge of orchestrating what has been going on in our family for generations.
Now, a lot of people believe, and there's been a lot of stuff out there about Jeffrey Epstein being a CIA agent or something like that. Maybe there's just a lot of sickness in there. That's why they wanted to get all this information to blackmail politicians so they could use them.
With my experiences, I believe he wanted
Thanks, Alan.
to talk more about the other parties involved. And I know he didn't kill himself. I'm not sure whether they let him go and get plastic surgery and flee the country, or if they did, kill him. But I do believe he was a pawn, and that his story blew up in the media to keep people from looking beyond him. If Jeffrey was the one villain in charge of it, then, oh, he's dead, it's all over, everything's good now. And that leaves my father free to continue 3-year-olds.
Who's your father's name? Does anyone know?
And running Viacom from behind a veil while his paralegal runs his divorce practice, as he bragged about to me growing up.
So you're saying that Jeffrey wasn't involved in the full-on occult practices. He was just part of a machine, and then they just used him to make an example out of?
He was involved in the full-on occult practices, but not necessarily of his own volition. I have memories of men being forced to assault me when they didn't want to. I remember one man, this brilliant comedic actor.
Yeah, I was sometime back
better
then,
dramatic work.
2006, 7, somewhere in there.
My father's screaming at
and
him.
And it really blew up during Obama.
Telling him to penetrate me, and he makes one thrust and backs away, and my father gets outraged and says, "You're going to come. You're going to come." And this poor man is crying throughout it. And I'm barely conscious. Jeffrey may have been involved in the full-on occult practices, but he's not one of the hardcore of this sickness where they are actually attracted to small children.
Yeah, Lady C mentioned that as well about hebephiles.
I have my doubts.
So, in terms of Maxwell, then, who do you think? What do you think her role was?
I think she enjoyed it, much like my stepmother did. I think she is as guilty of as Jeffrey was.
A stepmom too.
But I didn't know her very well. I don't even remember a conversation with her. I remember seeing her. I think she got off on the power of it. I
hope we ask about the Clintons.
I think with men who engage in hebephilia, it's more of a sickness that arises from their own abuse. Like my grandfather, my alleged grandfather, Walt's son, who worked for the CIA, allegedly faked his death to remove himself from my mother because he was so sickened by what he could not control doing to her. I contrast that with my stepmother, who delighted in abusing me and laughed at me when I was incapacitated by the drug they had me on and made fun of me drooling on myself, being unable to speak. I think with her and with Ghislaine, I'm certain they were abused as children themselves, but there's a different kind of psychopathy that grows within them where they get off on the power of it and abetting in these acts to please their partners. Now, Kari Epstein was more sexually attracted to me than she was to her husband, Stephen. But she did also do these things in order to stay in good graces with him. And that was more out of survival. Kari was a very broke.
You should ask her how old she was at the time.
Cellist in her early adulthood with no familial support, whereas Ghislaine also comes from the aristocracy. She had access to her own funds independent of Jeffrey. So I can't speculate too much on what she gained from it out of psychopathic pleasure and sadism. A schadenfreude of sorts. But I'm not a doctor. She was not a large presence in my life. And that speculation on her personality is primarily based on what I know about my stepmother.
So would you say then that some of the techniques used on you would be classified under the MK Ultra program?
Yes. Absolutely.
Could you explain that? Could you explain that for viewers who are not familiar with MK Ultra?
Okay. These drugs were administered to me when I was an infant. Macro doses were given every single time I was assaulted. And I was kept on micro doses the rest of the time in my waking life to maintain some control, some separation from my peers. I actually didn't realize until very recently that I was kept on micro doses, that I was kept on a small dose in my regular waking life. Upon analysis of what would happen when I went on school trips away from Denver for a few days at a time, we would take trips to Washington, D.C. or New York or California. On those trips, after 3 or 4 days, I would actually start getting along with my classmates. And they'd be amazed. They'd say, "Wait, Anya, you're really cool and fun. And we like hanging out with you." And I would end up being the center of the group and not understand why suddenly I'm connecting socially. But then we'd go back home. I'd see my family again. And the next time at school or at synagogue, I'd feel in my own weird little bubble again. So I was put on these large doses designed to knock me out when I was assaulted. Small doses to keep me complacent the rest of the time. What this did essentially was sever my memory. Everything that happened to me, everything that was boasted about to me, that occurred on those large doses was locked.
Yeah, I don't know the names of the drugs either, Paula, and they're not naming them. Maybe some in the audience. And you know kind of what field of drugs they would be in, but not exactly what they are.
Locked away in what I thought was a nightmare fantasy world. I was primarily unconscious for the physical assaults. And if I was awake, I was so high, I thought it was my own nightmares. This ensured I wasn't going to go telling anybody about it. This ensured I thought I was sick. So when they paid a doctor to tell me that my PTSD responses, like jumping when my stepmother touched me, were bipolar, I believed that. I believed it was my fault. When I went to rehab in 2015 and was diagnosed with PTSD right off the bat, the doctors were frustrated with me because I couldn't tell them what traumatized me. I was beating my head against the wall, and all I had going on in my head, I was stuck on this idea that if I were born male, I would be happier.
Paula, you might be right about this trans
Because
thing.
my experience of womanhood, I knew subconsciously, was slavery. MK Ultra.
I know I haven't played this one before. Maybe Vixen played a clip from it. I don't know. I know I'm playing the whole video.
Is the practice of creating slaves with a severed memory. Many of whom were my siblings.
I wonder if any of the if they could do blood tests to tell what she's been on before and who gave it to her and all that kind of stuff. It wouldn't be. This doesn't sound like something you would administer to yourself.
Who I only got to see at family reunions. Who I would rush home from school to watch on TV.
Yeah, you're probably right.
The podcast is with my sponsor, Shopify. When I started this podcast of life, millions of businesses use template page headline scrolling to sell. You're ready for Shopify. Link in the description.
Most of us are separated. I think I'm one of their only unsuccessful experiments. Because what they do is they take one of the twins, make them a child star, and watch the other hone their craft independently so they can rise to the level to reunite with them as adults. And it works because going through that trauma together, no one else can understand it. And that's part of the reason why I've been so anxious to do this podcast. There's still a door for me.
That whole family sounds really messed up.
I can push open if I choose to stop exposing this industry where people who love me want to see me again.
I hear you, Alan.
And they do love me. I know I'm in a situation where I'm struggling right now, but they can't call me up because that would be to acknowledge how we met each other, right? But they do love me. I remember in high school, one of my younger brothers brought to one of the reunions this little metal card he made in his metal shop class. Engraved on one side was his name, and on the other was the name of my boyfriend. And he said, I made this for you so you can try to remember. Hide this on you. Hide this in your underwear, in your bra, so you can find it when you get back to the house in Denver. Don't let your
more to go.
Don't let your brothers.
Good start though, Paula. Need more.
And it
works. More than 80 to go, but go.
After the drugs had worn off,
probably got a few in Congress.
I found this and I remembered who those boys were to me, and I started packing up a bag so I could run away to Hollywood. But my younger brother found it, and showed Kari, who gave me anesthesia, and threw it away. My family does this. The cult of Baal does this. They do MK Ultra because forging.
Has anyone ever heard of that cult?
These trauma bonds forges more loyalty. And 99 times out of 100, victims will choose being with other victims over trying to speak to eventually prevent there being more victims.
Does anyone in chat there know if that's true about the one? I think I'd want to get away from the other ones.
And I'm talking to you because the children who are going through it right now, one day, are going to wonder why nobody cared enough to try to stop it, to try to say something. Now they'll either find me.
Now, my friend Lisa Johnson, that used to come on this channel before she died from the jab up in Canada, Ottawa, she went through this as a sex slave as a kid, and someone helped her. They raided the place, and she escaped from it and moved to Canada. It was happening somewhere in the United States. I think it was near Texas or something. It was happening.
Or they will choose to keep their mouths shut because they will understand
Stockholm syndrome.
Why, for the most part, victims of MK Ultra choose loyalty over truth. That's why.
Anya, what?
And it allows them to maintain media control. The first thing you see when you walk into Steve and Kari's house.
Are they for sure trans, Paula? Are they for sure trans?
Is a giant poster of Vladimir Lenin. They boasted.
Because you wouldn't think the voice, unless they've had, testosterone and, or not testosterone, estrogen and all that kind of stuff, would be a woman's voice,
That one of my brothers is, in fact, the oldest son of the Queen of Jordan, where I have been. Now, that's just alleged, but if it's true, it could explain why Israel and Jordan are allies. And considering that, and considering my father's love for all things Russian, it makes it look as though all of these wars are just for show, designed to keep public perception off of this sphere of control and to keep money circulating through different industries.
So, Anya, why did you decide to start speaking out, and what challenges have you faced?
I decided to start speaking out because I don't want any children in my family to have to continue growing up wondering why they don't think that's their real mother or their real father. Because I can't stand the pain of knowing what those girls named Pain and Help are going through. And the challenges I faced are what I've described with loyalty, with wanting to see my siblings and maybe wondering, okay, is it better for those children going through the same abuse now to simply have a loving adult in some capacity in their lives, or for them to grow up and know that someone tried to speak for them. I am still split in half on that. The consensus in my soul about what the right thing for those children is as split as my memories used to be. Other challenges, you know, it's, you look at me and say, oh, well, that's not true. She's crazy.
Gregory, is that just a tribe or
of the people who found me on TikTok know I'm telling the truth. Look up a photo of Shia's mother and see that we're identical. You know, they understand that you cannot Google the truth if someone is claiming the official records have been forged. But of course, the only proof I possess is in my DNA. Getting anyone to do an DNA test isn't something I can do.
They can ask for it on their side. I moved back
to New York City because my ex-husband had a scheme to try to allow me to speak about some of this in court, since court testimony can be used as evidence to potentially open up a criminal case. But when I got to the hearing, I was only allowed to say my name and address, and the judge refused to let me speak beyond that. When we had gone to the FBI a couple years ago, they interviewed my father and said, oh, he said nothing happened, so we're going to close this case.
Thanks, Gregory.
If every successful politician is born into this world, they have vested interest in keeping it quiet. Now you have a woman who, because of the severity of the trauma that did happen, suffered mental health problems, PTSD. It's incredibly easy to paint me as insane. And my answer to that is, why would I choose to talk about something so vile if it weren't?
Some of it might be attention getting, you know, if they're lying, you know, I think it would be for attention.
Real. I'm not profiting from this. If I choose to let this interview go, I'm cutting myself out of the only industry I have any sort of talent in, and the people I'm closest to. It's
I hear
here.
you, Paula. I hadn't watched this all the way, a little bit of it. And I know there's a lot going on this Epstein case, so I thought it'd be interesting.
I cannot convince people that Sean Combs was not acting alone when I don't have proof. I don't have the video. It's probably at Larry David's house. You know?
There should be other people that can corroborate their story.
I wasn't able to record the ceremonies at Bohemian Grove because I was rope bound.
I don't know how you know so much stuff, Gregory.
They set up the abuse in a way to guarantee I was not going to be able to collect evidence while going through it. All I have is my word and my DNA.
Why did you choose TikTok as a medium?
Because taking an artistic route, which I'm still working on, I'm still trying to finish my screenplay, I'm still doing my stand-up just as my own outlet, would make my voice just another drop in the bucket of voices who have told the truth through art in a way that will make it dismissed as fiction or as humor. And TikTok, I didn't expect it to take off the way it did. I first posted a video back in August that got stuck in 200 views.
Has anyone ever heard of this person before today? It was about a few weeks ago when I seen this video, and I thought I'd bring it to you. Has anyone ever heard of them?
I chose TikTok because it was not controlled by Meta. And I do believe the gentleman who owns that initially founded his companies because he wanted to give some freedom to the people. But it got bigger than his vision. The United States wouldn't be trying so hard to get rid of TikTok if TikTok were not granting more free speech than the United States is comfortable with being in the hands of the public.
There's no way TikTok's got more free speech. They totally knock down things. It's totally leans China. There's no way there's more free speech there. No way. That's
no one heard me until I went on TikTok.
So we had ex-wizard Satanist from Bohemian Grove on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And he mentioned he told us a story about the Clintons at Bohemian Grove. Did you have any experience of the Clintons or about Bohemian Grove?
I have met both of them and their daughters at Bohemian Grove.
The daughters are there too?
And at resorts in Colorado. They loved going to ski lodges in the off season. They were not there in Aspen 2007 after the comedy festival. That's when I remember most vividly. But it's all fuzzy. I don't know if we were in Steamboat or in Breckenridge. But I've met them a few times and boasted all the time about how well she got along with Bill. She boasted about that even when we were sober.
So Bill tried to distance himself from Jeffrey. Do you think there was a lot more going on between them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't tell you what exactly, but Bill was on the flight logs because he went to the island. He also went to many, many other places where me and other children were present. It's just fact.
Yep, that's what Virginia said as well.
Yes.
Do you think the death of Virginia is suspicious?
Say that again. Pardon me.
Do you think the death of Virginia is suspicious?
Yes, I do. Of course. Of course. To survive a car crash and die in her home a few weeks later. It had my viewers scared about me. What's protected me is my stating that if they hurt me, it will only validate what I've been talking about. That claim is keeping me safe.
I'm not sure about that.
If they did have any intention of hurting me before, they can't now without it making my voice a bigger story. And on the other side of that, a lot of them love me. We grew up together. It's tragic. I don't remember ever meeting Virginia, but that doesn't mean I didn't. She may have been a cousin or a sister. I don't know. But I know she spoke the truth about what Jeffrey and Ghislaine put her through. And I think she was gearing up to speak more. I do not think that death was a coincidence. I do not believe that was suicide. She had two young children. She had 2 young children, and she had already dedicated her life to speaking for other
victims. She was Clinton.
There's no reason she would have killed herself. And I know some of her family said it might have been, but money talks.
I wonder how much of the real truth we'll ever know.
Would you say that most people at the top of politics are compromised?
Yes.
You have to agree with that.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I know exactly who Donald Trump was talking about, and he spoke of the New York elites during his first campaign cycle. He had no mention of them during the re-election. Because after that first presidency, he realized he had no pull on his own strings. And he was not going to be able to do anything to expose this. I believe Obama wanted to do a lot more that he promised in his campaigns, as far as reasonable socialization of our resources.
Yes, Tammy, it is supposed to be Epstein's niece. And I guess, or somehow related like that.
Bring us up with the rest of the developed worlds when it comes to providing housing.
I've seen a few other things about them somehow being related exactly. Some in the chat think that this person's actually a trans, was actually born a boy. I don't know. Hard to tell for sure.
In healthcare and basic human rights, and found his hands tied. Because in America, people must be kept poor and busy so they don't realize how much more power they have when they are unified.
And would you say that these politicians who are compromised, it's of a sexual nature mostly?
If a politician is not born into the cult, they are forced to engage in criminal acts or submit themselves so that those who are born in trust they cannot snitch on what they are witnessing because the family's got dirt on them too.
Joining a gang.
We see the same thing in Hollywood and in the music industry. There's a long tradition of Black men wearing dresses after they make it famous. It's not because they're forced to wear a dress. It's because they're using that to communicate with each other and tell their viewers, I had to submit to get here.
Which takes us to the portrait of Bill Clinton in the dress at Jeffrey's house. What was the significance of that?
Bill has engaged in sexual acts where he was on the receiving end. And there's the metaphorical submission. He was likely forced to engage in acts against children that he didn't want to engage in.
I doubt that he didn't want to.
Which is associated with weakness, which unfortunately is associated with femininity. I didn't want to be a woman because I had it drilled into my head that female meant you must submit. And unfortunately, it's what we're seeing pervading through society now, masquerading itself as feminism. The ideology I fell for, the ideology that saved my life, states your gender, your personality is not biologically determined, but is a social construct designed to uphold the patriarchy. Your body or your sex does not determine your gender or personality.
Which is all bullshit.
But you must change your body if it is not congruent with your socially constructed personality, inadvertently reinforcing those patriarchal standards that are not biologically determined that we are supposed to be fighting. Men put on the dress after they are forced to submit, whether that means giving their bodies or taking.
Is she just saying what this is, or is she saying she believes this stuff? Or he, or whatever.
A body that they do not want to take. And we associate that submission with femininity, which is a sickness for men and women alike. It hurts men who do not want to be predatorial, and it hurts women who do not want to be victims. It hurts young boys who are sensitive.
It hurt anyone that's has to go through this, male or female.
And young girls who don't want to be objects. But agency saves lives. Taking testosterone is when they stopped selling me. It saved my life. I think most people who adhere to that ideology do so because...
So what they're claiming is they are taking testosterone. So that would make me think that they were born a woman and trying to become a boy, or heading in that direction, or thought they were going to.
As they've reached a breaking point where they cannot exist in toxic masculinity anymore. Because they cannot continue bearing the pain of being a woman in a society that tells you you are only an object. Bill had to submit in one way or another. That's the significance of the dress.
I think he's just freaking a sicko in the head. A sick sexual deviant.
So were you on testosterone then for a period of time?
Yes, for 5 years.
And how did that affect you?
I'm now infertile, but that's because I had a hysterectomy.
All right, that sounds like they definitely were born a female. For those in chat that were thinking they're trans, the testosterone would give them that effect that they would look more like a male and sound a little bit more like a male, especially for 5 years like that. It does affect your skull size and everything.
The testosterone made my uterus hurt. And my doctors at Mount Sinai and my family encouraged me to remove my uterus instead of ceasing taking the drugs that were making it hurt. My breasts had to be reconstructed.
I can ask Sierra about this. You know, I'll have her take a peek at this. She's a detranser and knows a lot about this.
My family paid for a mastectomy. It lowered my voice. I've had to retrain it to speak at a more neutral tone. I'll never be a soprano again.
I tend to agree, Gregory.
But when I sing, I sound a lot more punk rock, like I wanted to when I was younger. I had a full beard. It's mostly gone now. I was getting casting calls for roles that required male nudity before I went back on estrogen. Couldn't take them because I didn't have the member that they wanted on camera. Thank goodness I never went that far. Whew. What was I going to do? Pack my Speedo?
It sounds like they were part of the whole porn industry. This is real messed up.
Risk it falling out.
More in depth than I thought I was going to see. I only watched about 10 minutes before I played it because it was about the Epstein thing.
Between takes. No, COVID actually started triggering my desire to quit that. When I started having to wear a mask again, and people from behind knew I was female and would call me a she, and I'd get upset about it. And see this mustache? I don't know. The piece then helped me face reality a little bit. It was also in that period.
So I think Paula was right that there was a
microdose
period
of the same substance that my family had me macrodosed on. And I had memories come back that I retained. It took my therapist 2 years to get me to understand that these were real memories, that it aligned with my psychological profile. I did not want to believe it. It was easier for me to stay in denial. I was happier when I was still in denial. My life was easier when I was still in denial.
Do you think the porn industry, John, is connected to child porn and all the Epstein stuff and that kind of stuff? So, sorry about my phone thing.
These were the same memories that I thought were only nightmares when I was a child. But as soon as those memories came back, I remember just looking in the mirror at terror of resembling those who had caused me pain. I love men. I do. I have a problem with men. I love men. But it was exceptionally horrifying to see how much I looked like my father. And the pain of having done that to myself, that I did so much to destroy my body in response to my body being destroyed.
So, Paula, you were right. This
So I
is
had
a
to go back.
detranser.
I quit the testosterone as soon as I could, and I was doing full drag makeup to hide my stubble and wearing wigs while I waited for my hairline to grow back in. It was embarrassing. People thought I was a trans woman. A lot of them who just are waiting for their turn to speak, but they wouldn't understand. I would tell them very concisely, I was born female. I was taking testosterone. I'm trying to go back to female. So you want to cut your dick off? You want to be a woman? But those are the same kinds of people who, and I explain why.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of
Google
perverts on set.
It doesn't say he has a sister because our birth certificates were forged. They respond, oh, I get what you're talking about, but then how come when I Google your dad, it says he only has 3 children? You can't help some people understand what they're not willing to understand. It's not my responsibility to fix stupid.
Anya, with these memories, do you want to talk about them, or is it too traumatic?
I'm willing to talk about them. I stayed in denial after the memories started surfacing because.
Well, I think you're kind of right, because I think this was a woman that trying to become a man for quite a while.
I remembered having some nightmares about being assaulted at the family cabin. Some memories about meeting a bunch of celebrities at big parties. That was very confusing. But in 2020, the first new memories to surface were not of the assaults, but of the circumstances around it. Because for most of the assaults, I was usually unconscious.
John, I get that stuff too. I just click like on something and they message me. The fake accounts.
I first remembered my family bragging about what they were doing. And I go to my therapist and I say, my family
Really has to do
lied
with
and told me
grooming
that
and
they were
pedophilia.
drugging me to me. Why would they do that? And she'd said, why would they tell you they were drugging you and you if they weren't?
Same here, Gregory.
And I said, well, I know that
Almost
they did
every
drug
day.
me because I tried a tiny, tiny bit of what they bragged about giving me. And I remembered being on it all the time, but I don't remember the assaults yet. I remember having some nightmares about being assaulted. She says, okay, are you sure they were nightmares? And it would go on like that until I remembered instances of the physical assaults, running and hiding from them, trying to hide myself in the bathroom, like that's going to help anything. Running naked and barefoot down the mountain before pausing and forgetting where I was and wandering back up the hill to the cabin, screaming out for my mother. I went to go see 3 other doctors after my therapist did so much to do EMDR with me and get me to accept that the brain would not recall false traumatic memories. Those are the memories that it blocks out, even when substance isn't part of it. People block out traumatic childhood memories until adulthood. I went asking other doctors to tell me I was schizophrenic, and they didn't because I'm not. They said, no, our opinion matches that of your other therapist. And of course, the meds didn't do anything because they're for an issue I don't have.
To me, it doesn't make any sense of her trying to be part of the porn industry, though. If it was that traumatic as a kid, then try to go into that when you get older. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. Maybe there's a syndrome to that, but I don't know.
But so it was about a 2-year process between when the memories first started coming back and I retained memories of being with my twin brother when we were toddlers. I had memories of being with him as teenagers at these reunions, and memories of my father and stepmother and brothers making fun of me for not remembering about my twin brother. And I didn't want to believe it because it was too sad. It was 2 years before I remembered being little with him. But my peers knew. There was one girl who was not dosed properly when she came to the cabin with my family and remembered what they did and everything they told her. It's when everybody at school started calling me Ren Stevens. It's the name of the sister character on my brother's Disney TV show. And I thought they were making fun of me because I was tall and a little bit anal retentive.
Does anyone know which this Disney show she's talking about? And what this character was, who this character was? Maybe we could figure that out that way.
But they tried to show me, they pulled me into the computer lab and showed me a picture. Who are they? I'm like, oh, that's and his mom, duh. They're like, no, do you see their faces? Who do they look like? Where do you know them from? And getting mad at me and saying, you're older than us. You're not taller than us. You're just older than us. You're not smarter than us. You're older than us. Why don't you remember this? I was pissed. I'd be offended. I thought the kids who were trying to help me get out of my situation were bullying me. Because it was safer for me still, I thought, to just go through that than try to run away, try to face it. I couldn't face it. My brain wouldn't let me. But that's how the memories came back. It took about 2 years and 4 different doctors to get me to understand it was real. I was in such deep denial. As far as specific memories, you're welcome to ask me questions. I don't know where to start. I don't know if I'm going to get into too many specific details. It's just...
I don't want it to be too traumatic for you.
Yeah.
You know, going over these things. More like, you know, your TikTok community, your viewers, when you're talking to them and stuff, is that cathartic for you to have the love and support of these people?
It is. Not for my sake necessarily. The most cathartic for me is my creative work. Another reason I've had a barrier, because I would be welcome to just talk about this through creative work, but then it would be another drop in the bucket with people making art about the truth. Why I went to TikTok, it's the hundreds of messages from people telling me that they also experienced child sexual abuse and also lived in denial and hurting themselves because of it, and thanking me for telling my stories so they could feel brave enough to face their own.
I do totally think they were sexually abused. A lot of the other stuff, it's hard to believe. I don't know. Some, yeah, some no.
It's for the 63-year-old man I made friends with in rehab who told his story for the first time in his life because
So they've been through rehab as well. The transit issue, the rehab, all that kind of stuff.
Was brave enough
Porn
to tell
industry.
mine, and for the next several weeks. And thank you so much. I'm so excited to keep telling my story to help other people heal from their own pain. That's why.
What hope can you give people?
That's why it's not the best outlet for my own healing, but it's the best way I can help others with theirs and make something beautiful ripple out of the pain that we were all put through. The more people talk about this, the less likely it is to cycle through history, especially men. I do believe men who are victimized are way more likely to become perpetrators themselves. I know 60% of men in prison experience child sexual abuse. And that's because it's so stigmatized. They don't talk about it, and if they don't talk about it, they can't heal from it. And when they don't heal from it, they crave reliving it. But they relive it from the other.
I must be way different because none of that ever happened to any of my people in my family, and I grew up with a big family. None of that ever happened to anyone in our family.
Other side of it. Taking back that power that was taken from them. It makes sense to a sick man. I don't want there to...
We're not on drugs or anything, we just do a lot of sports in my family and stuff.
To be any more sick men. I don't want there to be any more tortured little girls.
And
I'm going to tell you about a dream I had last month.
Okay.
I was back visiting that house I grew up in on Birch Street, but it was flooded with light, and there were these Grecian columns as part of the construction. And my father was there, but he was my age in this dream. Like, he could have been my twin himself. And he was wearing yellow and glowing, really happy to see me. And I asked him, how many times did they rape you? And smiling at me, he said, thousands. We went into the living room, turned on the TV, watched basketball on mute while some music played like we would growing up. And he took out the big kitchen knife and pulled down his pants and handed me the knife. And I began to make an incision when I woke up. It's the most healing nightmare I've ever had. But that's why I'm inclined to talk about it, because Steve never would have become a if he were not a victim of.
What do you say to the survivors watching this?
What do I say to the survivors?
Yes.
It wasn't your fault. You are not weak. It is okay if you're not ready to talk about it, but you will feel better when you do. You are valuable. You are not what happened to you. You are loved. To my siblings specifically, I understand why you feel like you can't speak. But you can, and you should, to spare your children the same internal struggle. You have power. You have responsibility. I pray every day that I'll get to see you again one day. But because I don't want
You might be right, John. There's been a lot on something. Boy, I don't know. That whole family's really messed up. Really, even when Maxwell, if she testifies, I wonder if it's going to be something like this.
The next generation going through what we went through, I'm not okay with staying silent in order to make that happen. And I pray that a handful of you can say something. To victims again.
I never heard of this victim before this.
And at large, you do not have to perpetrate to take your power back. All you have to do is claim what happened to you. I don't want to call us victims. I read a lovely little book from the AK Press a couple of weeks ago about consent, and they defined victims as people who are no longer with us, people who lost the psychological battle.
Suicide. A lot of trans do
or
that.
Even the battle against perpetrators like Virginia, and survivors as those who are still here. We are not victims. We are survivors. We are empowered. You can choose whether to use that power to be parts of waves of change against the fabric of secrecy that's been draped across our society. Or you can choose to be part of that fabric of secrecy, which is going to keep you wounded. It's up to you.
Wow, that's really powerful. And yeah, I really appreciate you spending time with us. And do you want to let the viewers know what they can see at your TikTok and the links in the description box, folks?
Yeah, I'm I want to start putting some of my comedy on there, some more art. I really want to start interviewing other survivors. I have people watching me, but there are others who I think deserve to have their stories told. The point of social media is social community. I don't want to make it all about me. I don't want to make it all about my suffering. I know I've been offline for a little while. TikTok stresses me out. I don't like social media. I have too many messages to keep up with.
Let me fast forward a little bit and see.
I'm not good at monetizing this. I'm going to try and give you guys.
I wasn't prepared
for it.
Monetizing it. Paul, you're right. There was a transition.
Very connected to, feel very attached to. You're the reason my phone is still on because of the donations that you made.
Oh, forget the donations. This person is messed up
for the first time
way but south.
In my life. People said, "We see you."
They need help. They definitely need help.
I've had to walk around the world wearing a bag on my head my whole life, and you guys took that bag off me. I could breathe thumbs like some of you want, or just sharing my art.
I kind of hope that they don't have kids. I kind of hope because they're gonna mess them up. I totally think that, you know. So I don't know, but in the comments there, Paula, you did call the trans issue thing though. They did try to trans. So I wasn't guessing that at first, you know. They are totally messed up, and there probably isn't a lot of drugs involved. They did say they went through rehab, stuff like that. I do hope they get their life together. But getting to the Epstein thing, you know, it's hard to tell if we'll ever find out exactly all that happened. Other than that, they were sick as they come, you know, pretty damn sick. You know, they need to be locked up. A lot of them. All right, programming note. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to be on earlier in the day, but I'm not sure. Maddie's supposed to be going to an event. We're going to see if we can patch it through. We can stream it from her TikTok to my platforms and stream it out. If not, I'll do a live later on in the afternoon, early evening. And then Sunday, I'll probably do one, like, say, around 6 p.m. Eastern. Then Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern, I'm supposed to have Shelly on. She's going to be done with her treatments. She's going through a procedure, trying to get the spike protein out of her. She's vaccine injured severely. She used to be a real serious athlete, actually, running like the triathlon, you know, the 3 mile, or not 3 mile things, the triathlon thing, you know, where you do the running, the biking, the swimming, all that thing, Iron Woman type thing, you know. She was a world-class type athlete and all that. And now she's been so injured. She got to the point where she couldn't walk for a while. Now she can walk again. But something she's going through to somehow they're filtering the spike protein out of her. And the procedure, she was supposed to come on Thursday, but it was so bad she couldn't do it. You know, it takes so much out of you where they got to take your blood out of you and filter it and put it back in you and all that kind of stuff. Some kind of procedure like that. But it doesn't stop your body from reproducing spike protein. Say about every 6 months you got to go through that to stay alive, basically. Hopefully they'll find a way to turn off that whole spike protein production in your system, you know, or maybe over time, if you keep getting it out, maybe it'll stop producing. I don't know. Maybe people in the chat would know. All right, I'm gonna end it here and see you tomorrow. All right, Rebel Chicks is up next, and then you got Country Conservative later at 9 p.m. All right, take care. God bless. Bye bye.